Captain Lee Taman stood on the bridge of Nexus Prime, watching the endless stars through the wide viewing window. The space station floated quietly at the edge of known space, far from any planet or sun. It was his job to watch for anything, strange or dangerous, that might come from the dark void beyond. The station was huge, with many different sections for the different alien races that worked together in the Galactic Coalition. Humans were the newest members, and many of the older alien species still thought they were too young and stupid to be useful. But Lee had proven them wrong many times before. Lieutenant Kim Woo-bin sat at his control station, watching the sensor screens that showed empty space in all directions. He was young and eager, always hoping to find something interesting in the boring darkness. Most days nothing happened at all. "Captain," Kim called out suddenly, his voice excited. "I'm getting a strange reading on the quantum sensors." Lee walked over to look at Kim's screen. The human quantum detection system was something the other alien species laughed at. They said it was too simple and crude compared to their advanced technology. But humans had built it differently because they had learned about space travel alone, without help from older races. "What kind of reading?" Lee asked, looking at the dancing lines on the screen. "Something big is coming toward us," Kim said, pointing at the display. "Very big and very fast, but it's strange, Captain. Our quantum sensors see it clearly, but all the other detection systems show nothing at all." Dr. Park So-young heard them talking and came over from her research station. She was the chief scientist for studying alien life and technology. Her job was to understand new things that humans had never seen before. "Let me see those readings," she said, studying the screen carefully. "This doesn't match any known physics. The object seems to exist in multiple dimensions at the same time." Commander Velthar, a tall lizard-like alien from the Draconian species, looked at their human instruments with doubt. His people had been traveling through space for thousands of years and had never seen anything like what the humans claimed to detect. "Your primitive sensors are probably broken," Velthar said with a hiss. "Our advanced detection systems show nothing unusual. Space is empty in that direction." But Kim shook his head firmly. "No, sir, the readings are getting stronger. Whatever it is, it's getting closer and bigger every minute." Researcher Quix, a being made of living crystal that could think and speak, studied the data with its mathematical mind. The crystalline species were known for their perfect logic and precise calculations. "The human readings show impossible things," Quix said in its musical voice. "No object can move so fast without creating gravitational waves. No ship can exist without energy signatures. This violates all known laws of physics." Dr. Park worked quickly at her station, running the numbers through every test she could think of. The results made no sense according to everything she had learned about how the universe worked. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think we're dealing with technology that's far beyond anything the Coalition has ever encountered. This object doesn't just hide from our sensors. It seems to exist partially outside our normal space and time." Lee felt a cold worry in his stomach. In all his years of space travel, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something about this situation felt very wrong and very dangerous. "Send an alert to Coalition Command," he ordered Kim. "Tell them we have detected an unknown object approaching our position. Request immediate backup." But when Kim tried to send the message, the other alien commanders at Coalition headquarters didn't believe the human report. They thought it was another case of human paranoia and fear of the unknown. "Humans always see threats where none exist," came the reply from Admiral Zeth of the Centauri Empire. "Your crude technology creates false readings. Maintain normal operations." Lee cursed under his breath. The older alien races still treated humans like children who were afraid of shadows. But he had not survived this long in space by ignoring potential dangers. "Continue monitoring," he told his crew. "If this thing is real, we need to be ready." For the next 6 hours, Kim watched his screens as the readings grew stronger and stronger. The mysterious object was definitely getting closer, but it remained completely invisible to every detection system except the human quantum sensors. Then, without any warning, everything changed. Every alarm on the station began ringing at once. All the screens lit up with flashing red warnings. Commander Velthar stared in shock at his instruments, which had been showing empty space just seconds before. Impossible, Velthar whispered. Something just appeared on all our sensors simultaneously. The main viewing screen activated automatically, showing the space in front of the station. Where there had been nothing before, now floated the largest artificial object any of them had ever seen. The vessel was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Its surface was smooth and dark, made of materials that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange patterns of energy flowed across its hull like living lightning, creating designs that hurt to look at directly. By the ancient gods, Quick said, its crystal body flashing with colors of amazement and fear. It's beautiful and terrible at the same time. Dr. Park quickly scanned the vessel with every instrument available. The readings made her head spin with confusion. The ship seemed to be made of materials that shouldn't exist, powered by energy sources that defied all known science. It's not just big, she reported to Lee. It's beyond our understanding. The energy patterns suggest technology that's millions of years ahead of anything in the Coalition database. Lee tried to remain calm, but his hands shook slightly as he prepared to give orders. Kim, open all communication channels. Try to contact them. Kim worked frantically at his station, sending signals on every frequency humans and aliens used to communicate. He tried mathematical sequences, picture messages, and even simple audio greetings in dozens of languages. The massive vessel received all their signals. The instruments showed that clearly, but it sent nothing back. No reply, no acknowledgement, no response of any kind. It simply waited in the darkness, silent and still. Captain, Dr. Park said quietly, I don't think we're dealing with just advanced technology. This ship exists in ways that shouldn't be possible. It's like it's not, entirely in our universe. As if responding to her words, the mysterious vessel began to move, not toward the station, but to a position at the very edge of Coalition space. It settled there like a giant predator watching a herd of prey, waiting for the right moment to strike. Lee stared at the alien ship and felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever had just arrived was beyond human understanding, beyond alien understanding, and beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen before. And it was watching them all with unknown intentions. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship as his fleet approached the mysterious vessel. 3 days had passed since it first appeared, and every hour brought more questions without answers. The ship remained silent, and still, like a sleeping giant that could wake at any moment. Choi had served in space for 30 years and had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. His fleet contained ships from 12 different alien species, each one equipped with the most advanced technology their race could provide. Yet none of them could understand the dark vessel that waited ahead. Status report, Choi ordered his communications officer. Still no response to any of our signals, Admiral. Lieutenant Bae Min-ho replied from his station. We've tried everything. Radio waves, laser pulses, mathematical equations, even the harmonic frequencies that the melodic species use. The ship receives everything we send, but gives nothing back. Ambassador Lee Ji-hai moved carefully around the bridge, her diplomatic training helping her stay calm in this tense situation. She had spent years learning how to talk with alien species and find peaceful solutions to problems. But this was different from anything she had ever faced. Perhaps they don't understand our methods of communication, she suggested. Every species, we know, developed their own ways to talk with others. This ship might be so different that our signals mean nothing to them. General Kethmore, a massive warrior from the militant Gorvak species, disagreed strongly. His people believed that strength was the only language everyone understood, regardless of what planet they came from. Peaceful talking is weakness, Kethmore growled through his sharp teeth. This vessel ignores us because we approach like frightened children. We should show our power and make them respect us. Admiral Choi shook his head. We follow Coalition first contact protocols. No weapons until we confirm hostile intent. But as they came closer to the mysterious ship, new problems began to appear. Small objects started coming out of the main vessel, each one about the size of a shuttle. These smaller craft moved in, ways that made no sense according to the laws of physics. "Admiral," Engineer Bay called out in amazement. "Those probe ships just accelerated from 0 to half light speed in less than a second. No known technology can do that without destroying the ship itself." The probe craft moved around the Coalition fleet like curious insects studying something they had never seen before. They passed through the shields of the alien ships as if the energy barriers didn't exist at all. Some of them even flew directly through the solid metal hulls without causing any damage. "Impossible," whispered the Centauri science officer. "Our shields can stop any known weapon. Our hulls are made from the strongest materials in the galaxy. Nothing should be able to pass through them like empty air." But the probes continued their strange examination, moving in and out of every ship in the fleet. They seemed to be learning everything about Coalition technology, how the engines worked, how the weapons functioned, how the life support systems kept everyone alive. Dr. Park So-young, who had traveled from Nexus Prime to join the fleet, watched the readings on her instruments with growing concern. "These probes aren't just studying our ships," she told Admiral Choi. "They're downloading complete technical specifications of everything we have. And somehow, that information is being sent back to the main vessel instantly." Ambassador Lee tried a different approach. She had the communications team send artistic images instead of technical data. Pictures of flowers, sunsets, and beautiful things from different worlds. Maybe the aliens would understand beauty even if they couldn't understand science. The probes stopped their examination for a moment when they received the artistic messages. For just a few seconds, hope filled the hearts of everyone in the fleet. But then the small craft resumed their cold, systematic study of the Coalition ships. "They acknowledge the art," Lee said with excitement. "That means they have some kind of intelligence and emotion. We can build on that." But Engineer Bay discovered something much more worrying. As he analyzed the data from the probe encounters, he realized that the mysterious vessel was changing. Every time the probes returned with new information, the main ship adapted and improved itself. "Admiral, you need to see this," Bay said urgently. "The unknown vessel is literally evolving. Every few minutes, new structures appear on its hull. New types of energy flow through different sections. It's becoming more advanced as we watch." The implications were terrifying. The ship was learning everything about Coalition technology and using that knowledge to make itself stronger. It was like giving weapons to an enemy who was already more powerful than anyone could imagine. General Kethamore had heard enough. Against direct orders from Admiral Choi, he commanded his ship to fire a warning shot at the mysterious vessel. It wasn't meant to cause damage, just to show that the Coalition had strong defenses and demanded respect. The energy beam from the Gorvac weapon was powerful enough to destroy a small moon. It raced through space at the speed of light, carrying enough force to crack a planet's surface. Every eye in the fleet watched as it approached the dark ship. The beam passed through the vessel as if it was made of shadows and empty air. It caused no damage, no explosion, no reaction at all. The mysterious ship continued floating in space, as if nothing had happened. But then something far more frightening occurred. Every weapon system on every ship in the Coalition fleet suddenly stopped working. Not damaged or destroyed, simply turned off as if someone had flipped a switch. The tactical displays showed all weapons as non-functional, but the engineers could find nothing wrong with any of the systems. "How is this possible?" Kethmore roared, in frustration. "Our weapons were working perfectly just seconds ago." Dr. Park studied the readings from her instruments and felt her blood turn cold. "The ship didn't just disable our weapons," she said quietly. "It learned how they work and then sent some kind of signal that shut them down remotely. It has complete control over our technology now." The message from the mysterious vessel was clear without any words being spoken. They could disable every system on every Coalition ship whenever they wanted. The entire fleet was helpless against technology they couldn't even begin to understand. Ambassador Lee stared at the dark ship through the viewing window. "They're not hostile," she said finally. "If they wanted to destroy us, we would already be dead. But they're not friendly either. They're studying us like we're insects under a microscope." Admiral Choi felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. His fleet was completely at the mercy of beings whose intentions remained completely unknown. They had superior technology, superior knowledge, and apparently superior power over everything the Coalition had built. "All ships maintain position," he ordered. "We wait and watch, but be ready for anything." The mysterious vessel remained silent and still, giving no sign of what it wanted or why it had come. But everyone in the fleet now understood one terrible truth. They were no longer the hunters in this situation. They had become the prey. Dr. Yoon Seok-jin arrived at the Coalition fleet aboard a small, strange-looking human ship that seemed to have been built from spare parts. Unlike the sleek, perfect vessels of the older alien races, his ship looked rough and unfinished. But it carried technology that might be humanity's only hope. Yoon had spent his entire career studying dimensional physics, the science of how space and time worked in ways that most people couldn't understand. When he heard about the mysterious vessel, he immediately knew that normal approaches would fail. "The ship exists partially outside our normal universe," he explained to Admiral Choi and the other fleet commanders. "That's why only human quantum sensors could detect it at first. Our technology developed differently because we learned about space travel alone." Captain Han Ye-jin commanded the special operations team that would test Yoon's theories. She was small and quiet, but her crew trusted her completely. They had survived many dangerous missions together by thinking in ways that others couldn't predict. "Doctor, are you saying our crude technology is actually better than alien science?" Han asked. "Not better," Yoon replied. "Just different. The older races standardized their technology millions of years ago. They all use the same principles, the same methods, the same solutions. But humans developed everything from scratch, so our approach is unique." Technician Lim Da-hoon worked frantically to modify their ship's systems according to Yoon's specifications. Instead of making the equipment more efficient and predictable, he was deliberately making it more chaotic and random. "This goes against everything I learned in engineering school," Lim muttered as he rewired circuits in ways that should have caused system failures. "We're introducing random variables into navigation, power fluctuations into communications, and chaos algorithms into sensors." But Yoon's theory was that the mysterious vessel responded to order and predictability by learning and adapting. Chaos and randomness, however, might be something it couldn't easily understand or control. The older alien commanders watched the human preparations with confusion and skepticism. General Kethmore laughed at their crude modifications. "Humans make their own technology worse and call it improvement," he said. "This proves they are too primitive to understand real science." But Dr. Park So-young supported Yoon's approach. Her studies of the mysterious vessel had shown that it learned from every interaction with Coalition technology. "Everything we've tried follows logical patterns," she said. "Maybe illogical patterns will give us different results." Captain Han's team approached the enormous vessel in their modified ship. The craft shook and rattled as its chaotic systems fought against each other, creating energy patterns that made no mathematical sense. It looked like it might fall apart at any moment. The mysterious vessel, which had ignored every previous approach, suddenly began to respond. Lights appeared along its dark hull in patterns that seemed almost curious. For the first time since its arrival, the alien ship sent out scanning beams toward the human craft. "It's working!" Lim shouted excitedly. "The vessel is actually paying attention to us." But the real breakthrough came when the scanning beams touched their ship. Instead of learning and adapting as it had done with Coalition technology, the mysterious vessel seemed confused by the chaotic human systems. The patterns of energy on its hull began to fluctuate wildly. Then, without any warning, voices spoke directly into the minds of everyone on Han's ship. Not through radios or speakers, but somehow, directly into their thoughts. The experience was overwhelming and frightening. "You are different," the voice said, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Your patterns cannot be predicted. Your technology defies logical analysis. We have not encountered this before." Dr. Yoon felt a mixture of excitement and terror as he realized they had achieved first contact. "Who are you?" he asked, not knowing if the beings could hear his thoughts. "We are the collective," came the reply. We have observed the rise and fall of 10,000 civilizations. We have seen species develop from primitive animals to masters of space and time. But all have followed the same predictable patterns, until now. The mental communication continued, flooding their minds with information. The collective had been traveling through the universe for millions of years, watching and studying how different species evolved. They had perfect knowledge of how civilizations developed, how technology advanced, how societies grew and eventually died. Every species follows the same path, the collective explained. They discover fire, invent tools, learn to fly, reach for the stars. They develop efficient technology, create stable governments, and pursue logical solutions to all problems. Eventually, they become so perfect and predictable that they stop growing and begin to die. Captain Han struggled to understand what this meant for humanity. Are you here to judge us? To decide if we deserve to survive? We came because your species breaks all known patterns, the collective replied. Your technology is inefficient but creative. Your societies are chaotic but adaptable. You choose difficult solutions when simple ones exist. You are unpredictable in ways we have never observed. The revelation was staggering. Humanity's greatest weakness, their inability to create perfect, efficient systems, was actually their greatest strength. While other species had optimized themselves into stagnation, humans remained chaotic and creative. We have been searching for millions of years, the collective continued, for a species that could grow beyond the limitations that destroy all others. You may be the first. Technician Lim made another important discovery as he analyzed the mental contact. The collective themselves seemed to have become trapped by their own perfection. They had achieved ultimate knowledge and complete understanding, but in doing so, they had lost the ability to change and grow. They need us as much as we need them, he told the others. They've been alone for so long that they've forgotten how to evolve. Our chaos might be the key to their own growth. The communication grew stronger as the collective focused more attention on the human ship. Images and concepts flowed through their minds. Pictures of dead civilizations that had achieved perfection and then faded away. Memories of species that had solved all their problems and then had nothing left to live for. Will you help us understand? The collective asked. Will you show us how unpredictability creates strength instead of weakness? Dr. Yoon realized they stood at a crossroads that would determine the future of humanity, and perhaps the entire universe. The most advanced beings in existence were asking humans for help, not because of their technology or their weapons, but because of their beautiful, chaotic, unpredictable nature. What do you want from us? Captain Han asked. Partnership, the collective replied. We offer knowledge and power beyond your imagination. In return, we ask you to remain exactly as you are, chaotic, creative, and impossible to predict. Together, we might find a way for all species to grow beyond their limitations. As the mental contact ended, Han's team found themselves back in normal space near the Coalition fleet. But everything had changed. They now carried the most important message in human history, that their greatest weakness was actually their greatest gift, and the universe itself might depend on keeping it that way. Professor Oh Kyung-soo felt his mind expand as the collective made direct contact with him aboard the Coalition flagship. As humanity's cultural interpreter, his job was to help explain human behavior to the alien beings who wanted to understand why humans were so different from every other species they had encountered. The mental connection was overwhelming but somehow gentle, like being surrounded by the thoughts of ancient, wise beings who had seen the birth and death of entire galaxies. Through this connection, O began to understand the true purpose of the collective's arrival. We are not conquerors, the voice in his mind explained. We are evaluators. For millions of years, we have tested every species that reaches the stars to determine their potential for transcendence to higher dimensional existence. Images flowed through O's consciousness, memories of countless civilizations that the collective had observed over the eons. The pattern was always the same. Species would develop technology, create stable societies, solve their major problems, and then gradually stop growing and evolving. Every species follows predictable paths, the collective continued. They optimize their technology for efficiency. They create governments that eliminate chaos. They pursue logical solutions to every problem. Eventually, they achieve perfect stability and then begin to fade away because they no longer have any reason to change or grow. But humans had broken this ancient pattern in ways that fascinated and puzzled the collective. Where other species sought efficiency, humans often chose the more difficult path that led to innovation. Where others eliminated chaos, humans seemed to thrive on it. Commander Park Jun-ho received his own communication from the collective as his tactical team prepared for what they thought might be a military confrontation. Instead, they found themselves facing tests that challenged everything they thought they knew about strategy and survival. "We will present scenarios," the collective explained to Park. "Your choices will determine not only humanity's fate, but whether we ourselves can evolve beyond our current limitations." The first test appeared as a holographic simulation around the Coalition fleet. They found themselves facing a dying planet, where they could save millions of lives, but only by sacrificing their most advanced technology. The logical choice was to preserve their equipment and save fewer people. Every alien commander in the fleet immediately began calculating the most efficient solution: how to save the maximum number of lives with the minimum risk and resource expenditure. It was basic military logic that any species would follow. But the humans chose differently. Captain Han's team volunteered to sacrifice their ship to save additional refugees. Admiral Choi ordered the entire human contingent to give up their most advanced weapons to provide better life support for the rescued population. "Illogical," muttered General Kethmore. "They choose to weaken themselves for strangers they will never see again." But scientist Nam Yunji, who was studying the quantum effects of the test, made a startling discovery. "The collective isn't just testing us," she told Professor O. "They're learning from us. Every time we make an unpredictable choice, their own systems become slightly less rigid." The test continued, each one more complex than the last. In every scenario, the alien commanders chose the logical, efficient solutions that would maximize their species' survival and power. The humans consistently chose the chaotic path that led to greater risk but also greater potential for growth. When faced with a scenario where they could gain advanced technology by abandoning a primitive species, the aliens calculated the benefits and accepted the trade. The humans refused and instead found creative ways to help the primitive species develop on their own. When presented with a choice between certain victory and uncertain exploration of unknown possibilities, the alien commanders chose victory every time. The humans chose the unknown, even when it might lead to failure. "Your species is unique," the collective told Professor O as the tests continued. "Every other race we have encountered optimizes for survival and efficiency. Only humans consistently choose growth over safety, creativity over certainty, chaos over order." But Nam made an even more important discovery as she analyzed the quantum signatures of the collective during the tests. The ancient beings had become trapped by their own pursuit of perfection. They had achieved ultimate knowledge and complete understanding, but in doing so, they had lost the ability to change and evolve. "They need our chaos factor," she explained to the other human leaders. "They've been stagnant for millions of years because they eliminated all unpredictability from their existence. They can observe and analyze, but they can't grow anymore." The revelation transformed everyone's understanding of the situation. The collective hadn't come to judge humanity. They had come seeking salvation from their own evolutionary dead end. The Prime, the leader consciousness of the collective, made direct contact with Professor O to confirm this startling truth. "We achieved transcendence long ago," the Prime explained. "We became beings of pure thought and energy, masters of space and time. But in our perfection, we lost something essential: the ability to surprise ourselves." The final test was the most challenging of all. The collective presented humanity with an exact copy of their own perfected technology and knowledge. All of human problems could be solved instantly. War, disease, poverty, and death could be eliminated. But accepting this gift would mean becoming as predictable and stagnant as every other advanced species. The alien commanders begged humanity to accept. Perfect technology would benefit everyone in the coalition. Suffering could end throughout. The galaxy. It was the logical choice that any reasonable species would make. But the humans hesitated. Professor O spoke for all of humanity when he said, "Perfection sounds wonderful, but it's not who we are. Our strength comes from our struggles. Our creativity comes from our problems. Our growth comes from our mistakes." Admiral Choi made the decision that would change the fate of the universe. "We choose to remain imperfect," he announced, "but we offer partnership instead of submission. We'll share our chaos with you if you share your wisdom with us." The Prime responded with something that might have been laughter, the first spontaneous emotion the collective had experienced in millions of years. "You offer to teach your teachers," the Prime said. "You choose uncertainty over certainty. This is why you are the first species in eons with the potential for true evolution." Commander Park realized that the tests had changed not just humanity's relationship with the collective, but the collective's relationship with themselves. "They're not the same beings they were when they arrived," he observed. "Contact with us has already started to change them." The tests ended with the collective making an unprecedented offer. Instead of evaluating humanity for transcendence, they proposed a merger of consciousness, a joining of human chaos with collective wisdom that could benefit both species and potentially every other civilization in the galaxy. "Together," the Prime explained, "we might find a way for all species to grow beyond their limitations. Your unpredictability combined with our knowledge could create something neither of us could achieve alone." Professor O felt the weight of making the most important decision in human history. The offer was tempting beyond imagination: unlimited knowledge, incredible power, and the chance to help guide the evolution of the entire universe. But it would also mean changing what it meant to be human. The question that remained was whether humanity could maintain its beautiful chaos while accepting the responsibilities that came with cosmic wisdom. President Kang Min-young stood in the emergency council chamber on Earth, surrounded by the greatest minds humanity had ever produced. The message from the coalition fleet had arrived just hours ago, carrying news that would change everything. Humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe. The collective wanted to merge their consciousness with humanity's, sharing their vast knowledge and power in exchange for humanity's unique gift of creative chaos. It was the most important decision any species had ever been asked to make. "The offer is incredible," said Dr. Yoon over the communication link from the fleet. "They're offering to share technology and knowledge that could solve every problem we've ever faced. We could end hunger, cure all diseases, even extend human life indefinitely." But Council Elder Shin Dong-woo, the oldest and wisest member of the human government, raised serious concerns about the proposal. "If we accept this merger, will we still be human? Our unpredictability and creativity come from our struggles and limitations. Remove those and we might become just another predictable species." President Kang felt the enormous weight of the decision on her shoulders. Every choice had consequences that could affect not just humanity, but potentially every living being in the galaxy. The wrong decision could doom humanity to stagnation or worse. "What if we found a middle path?" she suggested after hours of debate. "What if only some humans undergo the transformation, while others remain unchanged? We could preserve human nature while gaining the wisdom to help other species." The idea intrigued the collective when it was presented to them. Through their mental link with Professor O, they considered this hybrid approach, selective integration rather than complete transformation. "Interesting," the Prime responded. "A portion of humanity would transcend to become guides and teachers, while the majority would maintain their chaotic creativity. This preserves the essence of what makes your species unique while creating beings capable of helping others." Captain Moon Seo-jin volunteered to lead the first test of this hybrid approach. She was chosen because she perfectly represented humanity's balance of courage and wisdom, order and chaos. Her crew would become the first human collective hybrid beings. The transformation was unlike anything anyone had imagined. Instead of losing their human nature, the volunteers found that their consciousness expanded to include vast knowledge while maintaining their essential creativity and unpredictability. "I can see the patterns now," Moon reported as the change completed. "I understand how civilizations rise and fall, how technology develops, how species evolve. But I still feel human. I still want to explore, to create, to find new ways to solve old problems. The first practical test came when they encountered a dying civilization at the edge of Coalition space. The Talaxi people had achieved perfect efficiency in their technology and complete stability in their society. They had solved all their problems and eliminated all conflict. But in doing so, they had lost the will to continue living. The traditional collective approach would have been to observe and analyze as the Talaxi slowly faded away. It was a pattern they had seen countless times before. But Captain Moon and her hybrid crew tried something different. They introduced controlled chaos into Talaxi society. Not enough to cause harm, but just enough to create new challenges and opportunities. They shared human music, human art, human stories of struggle and triumph. Most importantly, they taught the Talaxi that problems weren't things to be eliminated, but opportunities for growth. "Your art is so random," one Talaxi leader complained. "It follows no logical patterns, it serves no efficient purpose." "That's exactly the point," Moon replied with a very human smile. "The best things in life don't always make logical sense. Sometimes the journey is more important than the destination." Slowly, the Talaxi began to change. They started creating their own chaotic art, writing stories that didn't have predetermined endings and asking questions that had no simple answers. For the first time in centuries, they began to grow and evolve again. The collective watched in amazement as their ancient patterns of observation were replaced by active participation in the growth of other species. The merger with humanity had given them something they thought they had lost forever: the ability to surprise themselves. "This is unprecedented," the Prime admitted to Professor O. "We have observed the decline of civilizations for millions of years, believing it to be inevitable. But you have shown us how to reverse the process. Your chaos factor can revitalize any species." Elder Shin had been right about finding a balance. The hybrid humans retained their essential humanity while gaining the wisdom to help others. They became teachers and guides, but not rulers or conquerors. Their job was to introduce creative disruption wherever stagnation threatened to take hold. More volunteers stepped forward to undergo the transformation, but always in limited numbers. President Kang established the rule that no more than 1% of humanity could be transformed at any given time. The vast majority would remain completely human, ensuring that their species' creative chaos would never be lost. The collective began to change as well. Contact with humanity had awakened something they thought was dead: curiosity about their own potential for growth. They started to experiment with controlled chaos in their own consciousness, allowing for spontaneous thoughts and unexpected discoveries. Captain Moon led the first joint human collective expedition to explore regions of space that had been avoided for millions of years. These areas were thought to be too dangerous or too unpredictable for scientific study, but with human chaos factor guiding them, they made discoveries that revolutionized understanding of the universe itself. They found dimensions where thought became reality, spaces where time flowed backward, and energy patterns that created new forms of life. The rigid scientific methods of older civilizations could never have comprehended such things, but human creativity found ways to understand and explore them safely. "We're not just exploring space anymore," Moon reported back to Earth. "We're exploring possibilities that were never imagined before." The transformation spread throughout the galaxy as other species learned about the human approach to evolution. The Coalition established new protocols based on human methods, deliberately introducing small amounts of chaos into stable systems to prevent stagnation. Some species resisted at first, preferring their efficient, predictable ways. But as they watched others begin to grow and evolve again, even the most conservative races began to experiment with controlled unpredictability. The Centauri Empire, known for their rigid military discipline, started allowing soldiers to improvise during training exercises. The crystalline beings of Quix's species began creating art with random elements that defied their mathematical nature. Even the ancient draconian civilization started telling stories with uncertain endings. President Kang watched from Earth as reports came in from across the galaxy. Everywhere the human collective teams traveled, They left behind species that were growing and changing instead of slowly dying. "We've become gardeners of civilization," she told Elder Shin during one of their regular discussions. "Our job isn't to rule or control, but to plant seeds of creative chaos wherever they're needed." The mysterious vessel that had once seemed so threatening became the first of many hybrid ships that traveled between the stars. They were no longer unknown or unstoppable, because they had become partners in the greatest experiment the universe had ever seen. Years passed and the transformation continued to spread. Humanity had found its true purpose in the galaxy, not as conquerors or subjects, but as teachers of the most important lesson any species could learn. Growth required change required challenges, and challenges required the courage to face uncertainty with creativity and hope. The galaxy itself began to evolve in ways that had never been possible before. New forms of art appeared that combined the logic of ancient civilizations with the chaos of human creativity. Technologies emerged that were both efficient and unpredictable, solving problems in ways that surprised even their creators. Captain Moon, now more than human but still essentially herself, stood on the bridge of her hybrid vessel and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new species were taking their first steps into space. When they were ready, she and her crew would be there to teach them the most important truth in the universe, that their imperfections were not weaknesses to be overcome, but strengths to be celebrated. The unknown vessel had emerged from the darkness, bringing fear and uncertainty, but it had given the galaxy something far more valuable, the gift of eternal growth through beautiful, creative chaos that would never end.